lúc xưa tận đây nó chỉ cho tàu vừa cho là một kiện là luật rồi được khen là chỉ lúc thế cho còn là cho tôi một chat từ lúc xưa nó yếu chỉ mới khó phèn hiểu thế cho chuột là một trong mỗi USA TV giờ này linh thêm một lúa đã chỉ tháo hụt giác khai rồi từ sao đông ở trong đàn đảo
nhớ rằng trong này cái này chẳng ở trong đó mấy suất lại đó xuyên lúc sau chẳng hạn đó chỉ cũng hay bị lúc cũng Asian Business Institute Resource Center ta chỉ nói bên bên để rồi thì mình nói cũng hu bên bên China thì ABRIC nè một cái tulu rồi cả hai trong gì tham pe đó xin nó cũng mới được coi chú sen cho nên tôi chuẩn bị tham mình chỉ Việt Nam mình bảo bên lúc cũng tham dự họ cái lần lội nhau với cái nó chỉ biết saoอย่างไรจะเป็นตัวพอยLuis Chavezไม่จะบอกnữa làไม่จะบอกที่นี่ไอ้ตัว council member เนี่ยหัว city of Fresno อยากเขาไปอยู่ในฐานแล้วกูอยู่ในฐานนู้นนั่นเจ้ให้จุดนั้นเกลันโลหัว city ให้เนี่ยไปมองแต่ไปจะตัวนั้นเลยตรงในจันทร์ให้ตั้งแต่นั้นในรูจีอยู่ปั้นไปตรงในจันทร์สิขณะนี้เขาจะยิ่งจะไปตรงในชุดตัวแต่ไปบอกว่าเขาเกลันโลฮะเขาเกเขาหรือจะไปยังไม่ตัวมีเนาะจะไปตัวแข่งที่จะมองอย่างที่ปั้นตัว city ไปจะบอกตัวแล้วใช่ไหมเขาขาวตัวเลยจันก็ไปตัวสีได้ยังchỉ city đó chỉ đó bán bên trong này cho tôi nè, cô xuất lại mấy cháu về đó lúc sáng nói chỉ cho bên trong này cho tôi, cô yam Blong cô yam itu executive director nhà họ Asian Business Institute Resource Center the ABRIC, đó chỉ nói cô cho bên mình chỉ bên the point the coach is saying Councilman Luis Chavez. Hey, so Luis, just a little quick intro that I do for the folks. Obviously, this is our second showing, for ABRIC, and we're about economic development, right? Working with our folks, working with our business here in the community. And so part of it was important to bring you here to come and talk about some of the work that you've done in terms of economic development within the city. But more importantly, how does that work with us and within our Southeast Asian community? But with that, let me go back and talk to my folks real quick about the translation so they understand how that's going to work. Mesela kani pinhabe de poni mekane je kuyo chai le mo de sim ke meta ta ta kuyo chai zhe chuo yang ne han je de ja yo chi dao len da lu xi han na ji chuo de zao zhe bian kuyo mo yan ne meka ba da content la chai ga dao jia lu ne ha ze de xi ga zhe chuo yang lu ne ha wo mo chai na je de ja kan yo xi shen de jo ha be ba da be ja lu mo de yin chi mo ja lu yo bao dao de ja lu meka ha na je kan na je me no ku ha lu meka dao zhe zhen ne ha de ju ya de ku san de jin ya Luis, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our folks?
Well, Councilmember Luis Chavez, I represent Southeast Fresno District 5, runs from First and Tulare all the way to Jensen and Temperance. I've been there for 2 years now, previously worked there with the former Councilmember Sal Quintero. So very familiar with the area. As you know, we have, the big shopping center there, Asian Village, right, for our Southeast Asian merchants. And folks don't know this, but from First all the way to actually Willow, about 40% of the small business owners there are immigrants for our immigrant community. And so it's important that we do that outreach to them. And, last couple of months, I was able to work on a economic development ordinance. We passed that, and we've had about 5 businesses that have approached us about relocating to or expanding to Southeast Fresno. And so that's some of the work that we're going to be doing with ABRIC. I know we're going to be coordinating a big meeting with a lot of our Southeast Asian business owners in the neighborhood. And so we want to make sure that they understand that, whatever business they want to come into Southeast, we're going to be there to help them. We're going to be there to give them tax incentives for their property tax, for their sales tax, with the understanding that they're going to create jobs there in the area. And we know that 80% of the new businesses are small businesses, and they're really the ones that create jobs in our community.
Now, what's that program called again?
That one's called the Support Small Business Act.
Okay.
And so we passed it a couple of months ago. It's been in effect for about 3. And we've had a lot of interest, actually, in our community. And so we're going to be working on that project, because I think what it'll do is it'll help with a lot of the empty storefronts and parcels that we have along the Kings Canyon Ventura corridor, and it spans from First all the way to Clovis Avenue. Okay. But the area we're going to be focusing on is the little bit older part of Southeast Fresno, which is to about Willow Winery and neighborhoods there for us.
So what type of services directly are we looking with? If I was a business there and I came and asked you, how can you help me if I have existing business or want to open a business in that area?
Well, one of the most frustrating things we know for folks, especially if we have a language barrier, is the permitting process, right? You go through City Hall and You have to go from this department to that department. Then you have to go to building codes, and then you go to fire, and they have to return it back. What we're doing now is we will help them go from the time that they submit their application and business license to the time that they're ready to open up their doors for their business. We're going to help them navigate that gauntlet oftentimes. And, you know, as you know from serving there at City Hall, you know it can be a complicated adventure for our business owners there. And so we're going to help with that. And what's great about that is that right now we have a database system. It's called Excella. And so once somebody comes in and submits their permitting application, they will actually be able to track exactly where it's at. So they'll know that Bob from planning has the documents. Then once Bob sends it to Jenny over at Fire, we'll know how long that person has had the documents and how long it's estimated to get them through. Because at the end of the day, we know that in business, time is money. And if you're losing that, it's money.
Well, let me quickly, let's say content explanation what that is. Program she saying like hot again being bought that to the bill or a hot business how long the one you say on a bear some like get a hot good my who says on a got your page that got them out the city got them on touch a permit like what put I got pay a little hollow landlord you know Chipolo like Chipau and Lucia and a bit Chipau Chahatsuki Panama had a more than dollar and a bear she shared there there's a bit of Chipau open your shut down you be a Julia so each corner ban energy had that to pink and who does a boy more to the ban side of Japan has she pointing big at you organ down George saw you bought that you has she had Monsuri can more than that or more gay bank actually what more to do in Saha Pampe. Now, in regards to just the process, what about incentives for the business?
So the way that it'll work is for an empty store has been vacant for a while there, and I think it's important to know that these past couple of years we've had about 23 new businesses come into Southeast Fresno, and so we want to actually increase that by another 25 businesses. So once they come in, and the incentive will work like this. So you either come and you construct a new business in an empty parcel. You will actually get reimbursed the increased assessed value, right? Parcel's worth $100,000. Now you're building there with the parcel is worth $300,000. Now we have $200,000 to work with that you're already paying property taxes and sales taxes. So that will actually be used to reimburse the small business owner in exchange for them creating jobs. And that's what they do. And the great thing about it is that it'll count for themselves, so that'll be a job. Oftentimes small businesses have family members working there, so those family members will actually count towards the job count for the neighborhood there. And it's up to 5 positions that we'll have for the small business. Then there's a second tier that goes all the way up to 25 employees.
So to make it simple, then some of the money goes back into the business, right?
Absolutely.
And so for that gap that they have from the $300,000 to $100,000 investment, and if they create a job, they include themselves or any family members or those that they bring in. So they get kind of a incentive to give back to them in terms of dollars.
Correct. Correct. And so they'll use that amount of money to invest back. And here's the bottom line: at the end of the day, it's their money. Right. The city can do one of two things: they can keep it, or they can reimburse it. And the way I saw this was, I think it was a great opportunity to help our small businesses, because the city of Fresno does a great job with big production companies like Amazon, like Ulta, but we need to do stuff for our small business owners.
No, and that's sort of the majority of our Southeast Asian business are small, right? We don't have those that are in the Amazon or the Ulta or the big corporation. Nito Chavez that Honai Hodge Campang, your Duranlo, that Janya, you Dosha in a Pomo to that Janya that you take, Ramacho City, Naje, Nipomo, Jan, that she on a Bochamonia Bank, your Duranlo. We had that use a Maha thought that Jatuning, that you pant out or Holuna, they had you to cane, that you mean to me that they are young who told it to you, Popule Chituna, Ye Ituna, Nemo Honya, that you pant out, Ye, Capeta daughter, Yatabe, program now, and who Southeast corridor and Nike, Nemotsuke. Actually got 包面上啦個包裝上你亦透過好似你錄 office 啲啦幫有冇做啲你班齊 so if they want to know more about the program, and I said to call your office, I mean, or City Hall, who would help them walk them through? Remember, we have language is an issue too.
Absolutely. So they can call our office. As you know, we entered in a partnership with ABRIC. I know that your organization will help facilitate a lot of that conversation, and we'll make sure that the language barrier is not there when it's time for them to apply and go through the process for the city of Fresno. But I think it's a great time to come and invest in Southeast Fresno. You know, there's just so much growth and development happening right now along the corridor. We've got the bus rapid transit system that'll pull more eyes and ears on business fronts. And, you know, important to keep in mind that during the recession, we had about a 34% vacancy rate. It's down to about 14 or so. We want to cut that in half.
Right.
So we're open for business, and we want to make sure folks understand that, you know, the true definition of business friendly, right? Because it's not just going to be a slogan. It's actually the navigation, the process, the support. And that's where I think this partnership with ABRIC is going to be very helpful.
Well, obviously, we're appreciative of the partnership. I mean, we can't wait to do that initial community outreach and targeting our small Southeast Asian business to really engage more about this particular project, and how do we take advantage of that, because that is part of, you know, one of our core missions and value for ABRIC is economic development, right?
Absolutely.
And to connect, to bring resources, but to also provide that technical capacity. And as we're talking about economic development, one of those pieces, you know, sometimes we believe that economic development has to do with job creation, or has to do with small business and so forth. But to our small or our large Southeast Asian community, sometimes it's about jobs as well.
Absolutely.
Right, making sure that our folks, I remember the time we were on council or working in different capacities, we always talk about the brain drain, right?
Yeah.
That those that have the capacity leave our area because there's not jobs for them. You know, whether they're college,
jobs.
right? Good paying jobs. And so one of the things that I know that our mayor and councils, even during our time, was to bring good paying jobs. And so we've had opportunities. We've heard the last couple of years here about Alta, about Amazon, you know, the high speed has been there. And so I want to ask, I mean, these are some tough questions here, and it's really specific about our Southeast Asian community, having opportunities to make sure that our children, our folks that are graduating from college, that are moving on, our professionals, have these good paying jobs. As you said, it's about good paying job. I mean, the entry level job, or the McDonald's and Hardee's, those are fine in between too, but we're talking about professionals, the job that has insurance, that have good package, that can take care of them, that you want to stay here in the Valley. And so how do you see that in terms of in regards to our community accessing and having opportunities for those jobs?
You know, it's interesting. I actually had an opportunity to take a tour of Ulta the other day. And, you know, part of the conversation that I had with their HR person is I wanted to know how many of the folks that they hired, because they've hired about 500, and then they're going to hire another 500 from now until the Christmas rush. And so I posed that question, and they told me about 70% of the folks come from the city. But what I specifically asked them is, well, how are we reaching out to folks that don't traditionally get online and don't speak English, right? Or maybe communicate in their own primary language. And so part of that conversation is, I think, as we go about putting these deals together, is to make sure that there's language in there that says that they will do outreach specifically to our Southeast Asian population and other communities in Southeast Fresno. And they were actually open to that, which is great, because I think as that distribution model grows, I think it's going to be important to make sure that the workforce that they have reflects our community, right?
Well, we're excited. I mean, you and I talked a little bit about that, and making sure that ABRIC has an opportunity to meet the HR person, right? To see how that particular piece focuses on an impactful outreach, so that communities like ours will be able to send, we believe, that have qualified candidates to have opportunities to get those good paying jobs. Let me regress a little bit to our community real quick here. Councilman Louise, man, more Amazon, Alta, high speed rail, then chỉ mong nhau dễ dàng này bây giờ như là đã bao nhiêu tiền họ được này bây bao lấy chàng là bây giờ cho này tôi chụp bây lấy chàng họ on này chị bây giờ tôi này bây hạt số cái tôi làm mà bây giờ bây sản xuất cho tôi này họ được sự thì cho sản xuất hạt cho nhà cần đã tạ tên là giờ bây giờ tao họ được trong chàng mua lấy chàng gì tận tên này chị họ nói chị này tao té mình chị cho hạt ta nữ tuân chủ bây giờ tôi thả số ta bao lâu giờ mua là bao lâu chị tận tên là do tôi chàng bao hai một chỗ số lên số tuổi cả biết số lên số tuổi một cả một sai cho họ được chỉ vì thế biết hai số họ được dùng này chỉ như này ha nếu cho thể dùng ha nếu mọi người nên là ba biết cho mình tụi mình nhớ cho tụi này họ được gì cho họ được tầm mình đào nó tên là còn nó dùng gì cho nên mà chơi biết mà thì mình cái này gì cho nên cho họ được biết cho họ được dùng nhiều sản nhau hồ dễ cho nó chỉ họ nói họ chỉ biết tụi nó tên là lúc gì mà yo ở đây chạy yo ban tàu biết hay yo dùng bộ biết đâu còn họ được chân này chẳng you know one of the things that is important. When we talk about outreach and we talk about the things that get out to our community, right? And we see it traditionally, you know, whether it's the mainstream media or the paper or Facebook and those things, and that's one avenue. Sure. And one of the criticism or the challenge that we've always, and one of the core mission for ABRIC too is being that advocacy voice, sure. Making sure that institution, especially public institutions, whether it's the city of Fresno Unified, right. State Center College to Fresno State, that their communication outreach has to be a little bit more strategic, more impactful, right. Because look at the body in terms of representation within those institutions. And so one of those things that we want to encourage you, and especially in Southeast District, is to ask those questions, right? To bring those folks on board, to have them have discussions with organizations that have been successful in doing this type of outreach, so that when they do have a pool, that it is representative of the community in terms of a job pool.
Absolutely, extremely important. I mean, and you know what's interesting, as we're sort of having the conversation. As you know, I sit on the mayor's BFF 2.0 and
BFF,
Better Business Fresno, Better Business Fresno Friendly, and I think part of what we need to do there is have this conversation that we're having at that meeting, because it's important that we have representation on these decision-making bodies, because at the end of the day, it's the community that we're trying to serve, and it should reflect what our community looks like. And this is including all our Southeast Asian population, the Latino community, the Indian Punjabi community, but it's important to have that at the forefront, because if we don't, then we keep having the same conversation over and over, right?
And that's what we're trying to change, that cycle of community outreach. It jumps into, we talk about Alta, talk about Amazon, but we've heard, I brought this issue up, when I was in council, but also at the last,
many times.
that last meeting in terms of even our high-speed rail. And for our community, data hasn't really reflect in terms of the dollars that has been, at this particular point, invested into our community here. And don't forget, I mean, we're looking at billions of dollars that is coming to the city. We're using some of that. We've seen the development. But even with the questions that I posed the last time when I was city council, it says we can't even identify how many Southeast Asian is actually getting the job. I think the last number was what? I think it's a 2. We weren't sure what those 2 were doing.
Yeah, very small.
Right.
It's very small compared to what the population is in not just Fresno, but the Central Valley as a whole. I mean, we know that this was supposed to be a transformational project, and transformational for who? I mean, I think we have to be inclusive, right, about the conversations we have, because we have the needs in our community. We know that, right? When I was on the school board, we saw what the statistics look like for our Southeast Asian students and the outcomes in that area. And there are things that we can do. And, part of that work is making sure that we have those folks at the table. And I can tell you that on my end, I'm looking forward to working with ABRIC and organization and the work that it does, because I think for me that's going to be important, and I'm going to keep pushing for that as myself, and relating that to my colleagues and the mayor. I think the mayor will have a big role to play in that as well.
No, we appreciate it. I mean, from the mayor to our elected officials, at the end of the day, when there are issues, especially within our community, we look to our electeds, right, to address some of those issues, or at least to raise some of those issues in a way that hopefully allows for some discussion and dialogue to happen. Are there going to be some changes? I mean, as I talk to a lot of our folks, and I say, look, if we don't ask questions, we don't ask, and we're not going to get anything. And so we may ask for 10 things, right? But does that mean that we're going to get 10 things? Probably not. I mean, it'd be great, but
nice.
But the reality is, if you're able to at least get 1 or go 2 or 3, that's pretty good. Because all communities, not just our large Southeast Asian population, but all communities have asked, right? But one of the things that we have to do better, and is make sure that we make that ask, and that's why it's important for ABRIC to address some of those issues, speak on behalf of some of the business community and our youth that are looking for jobs that are, I think, as you know, the strength of one of the identifier for the strength of a community is economic development.
Absolutely.
Right? Where the community is in terms of business, in terms of folks that are graduating, folks that are coming back, folks that are employed in different areas and professions. And so if we have a viable economic piece within the community, that means that we're growing, that means that we're contributing, and that we're playing a vital role in terms of what's happening and being a part of the success, right, that's happening here.
Absolutely. There's an old saying that says, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right? I mean, and that is so true. And I'll give you two quick examples, and you know, because we've worked together on a couple of these issues important to our Southeast Asian community. When I was on the school board, you know, we knew that our Southeast Asian students needed more resources and more support. And we made sure that when we developed the English Learner Master Plan that we included a Hmong language component in there. And now, you know, started that conversation years ago. Now we have actually additional dual immersion programs, right? Not just at Bang Pao Elementary, but also at Ewing Elementary and Leavenworth. And so that was one example of what happens when we have these conversations. And now when I was on the school board, we had an opportunity to make sure that we had Hmong language available at all high schools in Fresno Unified. That's important because it's the education piece that prepares our students along for these jobs that we're talking about. I mean, somebody that's, you know, bilingual and multicultural, they get paid more. We know that. And that's got to be a piece of what the marketing is for working with organizations and big companies like Ulta, like Amazon, like small businesses. That's the crucial foundation of economic development, is the education piece.
And that's pre-planning, right? Forethought. And sometimes we think, oh, we're just trying to put the program there immediately, and hopefully it solves. But at the end of the day, you look at what's planning ahead, what the impact that it has, you know, in terms of the second language that's required now to be successful, to be competitive in today's market.
Absolutely.
And so those are things that is important for us as an organization to advocate, to bring resources back to our community, but more importantly in terms of our business community.
Especially not just for the Central Valley. You look at, you know, the region as a whole, and interesting, we're talking about how the language piece and being bilingual helps the jobs piece and economic development. The conversation that I've had with the HR folks over at Ulta and Amazon, people don't know that, you know, Ulta services, you know, the entire state of California, and we know that a lot of folks that call in and order, it's a language barrier, right? So if we have folks here that are bilingual, that are, you know, capable and qualified, why not put them in that role to facilitate that communication between our communities? It's good for business, and it's good for jobs, and it's good for the area's economic development.
họ lựa cho biết xong là từ đó một chủ lịch chạy nên tao mới có bị là thằng nhớ tao trustee nhớ tao phải nhớ phải nếu bao bé ở cái master plan này họ van plan tận đen nó hay họ dual immersion họ ba bé khi bé lúc check tại một chỗ lùm môngจะหาจุดนั้นบางปาร์มันช่วยสิพอมอจะห้องมองอย่างเงี้ยต่อไฮสคูลทุกสิ่งเนี่ยไอ้ตัวนั้นเนี่ยเจนมั่วคนละปีแต่จออย่างนั้นเนี่ยจะป้าเป็นหมดตอนเดบิวต์แต่ไอ้ตัวมีอยู่ในกันตาเนี่ยพอเราไม่กล้าเจนเนี่ยพอเรามองเนี่ยเจคนนั้นเนี่ยเขาจริงๆหาจุดชาต่อจะเขาหลุดจงเจอ谈到อย่างที่สิ่งมั่วจังจ้าเราเลยเนาะจะไม่จงนั้นจริงไม่ต้องการใช้เวลาเขาไปต่อรู้สิเหรอเนาะเขาไปต่อเจอจะน่าจะออกมาอย่างไปจนนู่นจุดเด่นเนาะไอ้ก็เช่นเดียวกับป๊อปปี้เขาเก่งเชิญตรงนี้จ้าเขาเก่งบ้านตรงนี้จ้าเขาหนึ่งตัวอย่างไรตรงนี้ต้องหายจะรู้แล้วหนึ่งตัวจอรู้ชุบเป้จะตรงนี้จะไปหายตรงเชิญเขาบ้านที่สิ่งนั้นป๊อปแต่เขาเก่งบ้านนั้นไม่เจอตัวแต่ทีวี是ตัวหนึ่งจีเนี่ยทีวีตัวหนึ่งโอ้โหเลยตอนนั้นตัวออฟฟิศแต่นั้นเราไปหัวจุดหนึ่งจีแต่สิ่งต้องเนี่ยตัวนี้จีแต่สิ่งต้องจะไปขาไปจะไปหมดจุดพวกเขาโปรแกรมพวกจะอย่างจุดเกณฑ์ช้าเขาเลยแค่เขาเลยช่วยอย่างผู้เชี่ยวชาญเนาะสิริตัว我就Now for that, Luis, just you know, as we get close to what we're trying to do here, you know, we talk about some of the city services as well, and a lot of our folks really, you know, we just know City Hall. Even the times I've been there, I've done my best to make sure that that we understand what really city does, and it's hard, right? I mean, people ask us all the time, what does the city really do?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's hard to say, oh, the city just does this and that. So try your best in terms of what does the city do?
I mean, it really captures everything, right? From your street lights to the condition of the roads to public safety and how safe we feel in our neighborhoods, in our stores, and our businesses. And you know, I can tell you, I've been out to the Kings Canyon Ventura corridor, and a big need out there is to have a little bit more safety for our merchants, right? We have issues that we wrestle with citywide with homeless folks that come in and camp out in front of your storefront or your alley. And so the city really, I believe, is the entity that affects our daily lives the most, because it's quality of life, it's safety, it's also the parks piece, right? We need more green space in our community. We need to have those
talking about parks.
Conversations, right? And so that's important. I mean, not just parks for us, but dog parks too, right?
That's right. Congratulations on the dog park.
Amenities for our community, but that's the work that I think we still have long ways to go on, how we bridge that gap between City Hall and communities that, like you said, don't get reached through traditional mainstream media. Right? We have to be strategic about how we go about doing it. And I think something that we need to look at too is, you know, for the contracts that the city of Fresno awards, I think we should have some language in there that ensures that our local folks and that reflect our community have access to apply for those and secure some of those grants, right? Because usually it's companies that come from out of town that, you know, the money goes out of here. And we have a lot of businesses, small businesses here that could provide a lot of those services, and we should be doing the outreach and different modes of communication.
No, that's great. You know, go ahead, John. May try to talk with City Council about the election. What John to don't know what the city or the Canada or the Dana. Go ahead, chỉ là tại nơi用意的，知道哦，被拆除样老师被拆除样的也可能后来势力都是势力嘛，是错样，还做呢就都件事，还做呢做给有战车，还做警察后来等呢就会跳有些，就势力呢就呢在哪，觉得一开始就好被知道到就可能就因为councilman 都知道哈，那三嘛势力也好进警察，还做就被从那这都要这种，为了不叫กฎหมาย了。จะ policy แต่ละพวกจุดจะเป็นวิธีเป็นอย่างหัวหน้าเจ้าชอบเป็นอันเดียวชอบจนเราได้เลยตัวนั่นเจ้ากับถ้าเป็นต่อแต่สิ่งเขาเก็บบ้านเราจะเป็นเป้าแต่พวกเขาหลุดตรงนี้จะเป็นเป้าแต่จะหน่อยจุดในจะในถนนจะเป็นให้ตรงมุ่งจุดพวกเป็นให้ตรงมุ่งท้อพวกไอ้กับพวกเอาบ้านไปขนาดเจ้าเขาเนี่ยเขาจริงๆเขาเป็นอย่างพวกตัวเจ้าเขาเลยนะกับพวกอีเป้าไปตรงนั้นอ๋อเป้าไปเขาเก็บเชื้อไปเขาเก็บบ้านเป็นนั่นเจ้าเป็นสันน้อยแต่พวกสุกี้พวกจะเป็นของเทตรงนี้จ้าจะย้อนหลุดนะจะก็ไม่ต่อแต่เป็นขอหลุดนะABRICนะจะยังขอแต่ตัดช่วงจะเป็นส่วนตัวรู้มีการมา advocacy นะจะตัดช่วงนะจะเป็นคู่จะนะตัวก็พอต่อแต่เป็นขอเต็มเองแล้วเป็นขอกินเช้าเนี่ยจะชิงแล้วนะ you know opportunity for us to also come to an end wrapping up a little bit here we talk about you know outreach and this is a great avenue right for ethnic media, and you know appreciate you know your office as being one of our partners with ABRIC. Without those partners, we wouldn't be able to do shows like this that is specific for our community. Getting you out here to talk about you know as I said to our folks out on the community, it's our opportunity to bring you in to have that personal conversation, right? Instead of the community meetings, but kind of hear what your vision, hear some of our concern issue, but how have you gone about addressing what your level of commitment, because that is also important for us to understand that we have somebody that's willing to come out here to talk with us, but also be there to provide the level of assistance that we're looking for if we're talking about economic development, we're talking about city services and those things. But we would encourage you, I mean, those conversations about making sure that the city commits to this type of diverse outreach, it's important, right? I mean, it's great that they may hire local agencies in terms of, but at the end of the day, they still hire, you know, through another contract or ethnic media. Instead of that, what I call a middle person, right? Why not directly go to the ethnic medias that reach out to them? Because that'll save you some dollars, right, in terms of where it goes. Because there are folks, you know, whether it's the radio stations, whether the ethnic medias we have here, that the city should go directly to them because they could get a better deal, I think, and then have a long-term commitment because it's important for city to invest its time and dollars to do this type of program. So when we're talking about your Southeast Corridor program, when we're talking about public safety, and we're talking about the array of services that the city has, it's better for the community to hear it from the city themselves instead of even for me who worked at the city for a while.
Yeah.
But it's almost a second or third person, right? From second or third hand.
Yeah.
Which could be, be translated differently.
Right. Well, and you're right. I mean, I think with the communication piece, why have to go through a person that is the middleman that might not even understand the community
Right.
or how the community receives the message and the news. And I can tell you that, I think for us, this upcoming year is going to be pretty important because there's so many huge infrastructure projects coming.
Right.
The water treatment plant, the transportation, bus system, the growth that's happening in Fresno. And I think if we're going to truly be participatory and include everybody in our community, I think that needs to be a component that we need to look at. And why not have an ongoing informational session that city officials can come, not just myself, but other elected officials and the person that's responsible for building permits and business licensing and fire, right? And that's an important piece of the conversation.
That's exactly what we're talking about. I think as part of this program, we're hoping to do a lot more of that. But also, the investment in terms of ethnic media dollars compared to mainstream dollars, it's cents to a dollar. And so you get more out of, I think, for the bang for the dollar that you invest in terms of ethnic media than you were to even go mainstream, because the cost is just prohibitive to that.
Yeah, we have and every, as you know, we have over 100,000 utility bills that go out every month, and we try to include them and have different languages, but a lot of folks oftentimes. They don't read that, right? Who wants to read a bill?
You know how that goes.
It's not something pleasant that you're going to open up and be happy about. And so I think when we use these types of medias to communicate, whether it's TV, whether it's radio, I think it's very, very helpful to include other voices.
No, look, we're getting close, and you and I could probably spend here a whole hour and talk about some other stuff. I'm going to give you an opportunity to. There's two, and we'll get you back at some other time to finish off. But there's two important that you touched on that we, even though it's coming up, it's going to be very controversial. One is the park, and then the other one's the water with Sigma, and that's one of the big projects that ABRIC does. And I'll update you a little bit. But just the parks bond. I mean, our community hasn't really been engaged in terms of the park bond. They say, well, how's that economic development? How's that play a role in what we're trying to do? And in your perspective, what's your position on the parks bond? Because there's some stuff out there. Give me a chance to explain that to our folks real quick. Lucia, do you some NGO more call ku san NGO that the Chavez on the debate到包住好 parks 吧呢，就是可能好前景这有大家如果一天度呢好 parks 吧嘛，但是呢你莫一般的也不三个不好 park 一般的也被这么也不去三个莫好 park 但是呢不三就都件事情没有难到呀路的是呢也被推荐了就我呢被上报的可能呢呢三的家他呢莫三的被这么呢被操了就操的就给但呢不好 park no more than that. So just, your quick position and what's your recommendation, what's your thought on it?
So the Measure P, and as you know, I actually voted to put it on the ballot for November, right? That was a decision the council made. I'm going to support it, but with this condition, that the dollars generated from that bond, if it passes, also be used for Southeast Fresno. Because I think the conversation that we've had has been where, the big parks up in North Fresno got the allocation guaranteed, but I want to make sure that South Fresno, Southeast, specifically my district, that we know has 7 parks, 6 of them owned by the city, one its own independent district, are at the table as well. And so if that's the case, I can support. Now we need to have more conversations about this. But I am going to be voting for it. I think it's something that the city needs. But at the end of the day, the voters are going to weigh in. And if they do not pass this, guess what? We still have to provide for parks. And so we still have to have conversations about what that looks like. And, I can tell you that in Southeast, we have, I mentioned the 6 parks, but I'm working on designating the Fancher Creek Park as an official parkway. We're also looking at the 49 acres that, are out on Peach in California. And we talked about the water. That's a big cost for parks and green space. And you talked about, Sigma and what that will mean for our local farmers and, our community. But what I'll also say, and I'll make sure that the community understands, is that the city of Fresno, with the new Southeast Water Treatment Plant, will be in a position where they can actually offer purple pipe water for farming to our local, farmers. And so that, I think, is a conversation that maybe we can have on another show, because it's a really long conversation. But the option is there, and the cost of that water is, from what I understand, it's about less than half of what we're paying now.
Right.
So we know that that's important for our local small farmers.
No, and I appreciate your comments on the park. Obviously, one of our shows before this is over and gets closer to November is to bring the opposition, hopefully have enough time to come and talk about why not the park right now, right?
Sure.
And what are some of their concerns and issues. But we touch a little bit about SGMA, and just to let you know, again, that is a big piece of what ABRIC is doing, because our state water grant. And we've been fortunate to work with the executive director over there, with Gary Serrato, with North Kings, which is in charge of that process, going through in 2020 with the policies. But the city of Fresno, our mayor, and to a certain point, council. You guys too, on council, we have a seat on that board, on the GSA board. And I've said this before too, but now it just reaffirms the work that we've been doing the last couple of months, that there are some concerns in terms of really outreaching the community about where they are, what this is going to do, what type of impact that it's going to have, because 2020 is right around the corner.
Oh, we're already there. We already started. We just don't know it yet.
Right, and so we're concerned, especially, as you said, we could have spent a whole hour just about the purple pipes.
Yeah.
Well, imagine about this water program. We probably spent a whole week
or
more and still not get done.
Absolutely.
And the complexity of the issues, and so. We on ABRIC's side, at least this is part of what we want to make sure that are elected like yourself, and we may end up at some point in City Hall giving our update, right, as to where we think SGMA is at, where GSA is at, is that we do have some right now immediate concern in terms of the knowledge and the capacity within our own community. We've done 2 workshops. I think we've had over 100 participants. Majority are Southeast Asian, obviously, farmers and so forth. And I will tell you, overwhelmingly, I mean, we're not talking about 61%. So we're in the high 90s here that have not even heard about SGMA
and what it means.
Or what it means
for their farming operation.
Right, and now you're looking that this thing's maybe begin implementation by 2020. And so as an elected, I hope that as a council. At least get an update or a briefing from that body, and say, hey, what's the next step for us? Where we are? What are we hearing from the community? So that our council members who represent each of the district can kind of weigh in.
Absolutely, and I'll flag this for you, because you're right. This is going to be a long conversation, but it's important for community to understand and know. The governor's office actually came down, and it's not public yet, but they actually asked the city of Fresno to run models on what it would look like for the city of Fresno to provide water for all the surrounding districts. And the question that the city had is, great, I think that's possible with the capacity. How much money is the state going to put in for that, right? And so that conversation has already started in preparation for SGMA. And I think what's going to be crucial and important is that we have, like the folks that were at your workshop there, giving their input, because the first phase is knowing that it's coming, but then the next phase, which is more important, is how are we going to handle it? What's going to happen with that, right?
And that's the challenge. I mean, the type of input, the type of community engagement, that's where I think, at least right now, our organization and the staff haven't been really clear on is what is the strategic plan or the type of budget that's allocated to making sure that we're engaged. Because if we have the same process, we're going to send a mail, we'll do the phone calls, we'll do that.
Nobody's going to.
Well, there's only a certain group of people that's going to show up, right?
Right.
You're not going to get at least our community to come, and especially if they say, okay, it's going to be held somewhere between 8 to 5.
Right, and then that makes it problematic, because now you have transportation barrier, you have language barrier, and most folks don't know about it. And now guess what? The regulations are still coming.
Right.
Right. So the first time you hear about it will be when you get a fine from the state of California, and so that's not good for anybody. But I mean, as you know, we've had this conversation with our Southeast Asian farm operation that we have on the parcel, and I think that's going to be important, because I think that could be a model of what this purple pipe system looks like. Right now, it's currently being run through Southeast Fresno into Southwest, and it's going to be important to get that finalized so that people know before Sigma actually gets implemented. And when I say implemented, I think folks know that it's fines, it's regulations, it's rules, and restrictions on what they can do.
Well, remember, if we're not successful, the state will come and take over.
Absolutely, and you know what that means, right? They're going to want to do what they want.
I appreciate that. Just want to make sure that especially with this program, ABRIC, one of the key supporters that we have from the funding is from the state water, and so making sure that's a component that we're advocating for, letting you know as representatives, not only a city council but also on the Sigma board as well.
Right.
And so that's hopefully you'll have the dialogue with the mayor, talk about, but more importantly, having those folks over there come back to City Hall in that environment and say, hey. Why don't you tell us exactly where we are, because we have those plans so that we have concerns that we're hearing from other folks in the community, and how are we going to be able to publicly engage them in that process.
Well, and if the city hasn't already committed to doing that, I'll tell you on my end, I'll put it on the agenda.
Good.
And I'll commit to actually having that, because if we don't do that, it's a disservice to our community.
And we'll be, at least for you invite us, we'll definitely show up there to at least speak on our behalf of what our experience has been, the type of challenges that we're facing out there, because that's what the grant is for, is to advocate for those that are disenfranchised, that are not necessarily engaged in this water process, but we understand that water is our livelihood here. It's the lifeblood of the Central Valley, and so it impacts all of us in terms of what we have to do together to meet that state standard, right?
$500 million project that the city of Fresno undertook. Right. You were there when it started. I'm there. It still hasn't been finished, but it's important that our folks are at the table and understand what that means.
So before we take a break, and thought in Donna, be Shumiji with the Lucia and which will be a sponsor, huh? Pu with the Councilman Louis de Chamolisha and Jugu Gominji Tansis, some one a jaw, the she one day that was a jaw, Shenny Molochi, Saw. So before I take kind of an unofficial or official break and get back into our discussion about ABRIC and kind of update the folks where we are. If there's any last word that you want to say to our viewers at home who's watching this, I know the majority probably will most likely try to get the kids to translate. I'll do my best in content.
Sure.
But just in terms of the folks and your comments.
Well, and the main thing I want to take from this and let folks know is that for this initiative that we're pushing through for economic development, it's going to be very important. I'm very lucky to have Asian Village in District 5, and that's going to be an important piece of our economic development activity that we have in Southeast. And so I want folks to feel comfortable in calling our office and working with you and ABRIC and facilitating that conversation, because what I would like to do is, and you know me, I don't like to have meetings just to have meetings, right? I want to have a meeting, and then we're going to get a goal, we're going to outline what we're trying to achieve, and then we're going to work towards that. And so that's the next piece of this conversation for me. Right after that meeting, I want to take a couple of their recommendations, incorporate them into policy so that we actually execute on them, and that they're worth it. Because if it's a policy that's not helping anybody, then it's a waste of time. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that it's productive. And at the end of the day, for government, it should be, let the private sector do what they do and then get out of the way. And that's why we want to facilitate that conversation for our merchants out there that are joining us here today. And call our office, work with ABRIC. They've done great job.
What's your number with the office?
621-7850 559 621-7850. And again, I represent Southeast, which is First and Tulare all the way to Jensen and Temperance.
Technically, he just represents the people that liked him, but he makes the decision for the city of Fresno. We got to make sure that it's clear for our communities at home, because sometimes when you say it that way, they're like, "Oh, that's all he does is just."
No, they can still call us. We will help them.
那我講到呢，陸上呢，邊我們數名機，事實上我叫 Louis Councilman Chavez 呢，到時呢，陸續係多準備談面機，就你叫好了，佢你可以幫助 ABRIC 幫助你就到幫別成下就叫好了，比較冇我等的，陸上呢，我想我做咗比較corporate sponsor 哈，有呢 PG&E、Chevron、Comcast，叫 Valley Small Business Development Corporation、Pacific Western Bank、State Water。Fresno Unified School District, the USDA go biz 將來就班日就俾冇到適合那邊俾整有地窿俾去俾整知道包頭窿俾人哋睇到睇啲事路上面當做個講啦咯，我咪說你就一般俾大家先知。
lúc xí hay nhà hóa ta là nó giờ chỉ có tàu dừa cho là một ô kia là luật rồi tụ khen giờ chỉ mới khai phèn dừa thiết cho sửa trong tại bên hông USA TV giờ này sao bao gì thọ hôn giác khai rồi tụ sao tông sư 我讲到。